inclusion for MSMEs. Let's welcome our moderator for this session, Mr. Nandakumar Palani, CTO NABARD. I'll request our speakers to join us on stage. Mr. Jinan V. Shah, MD, Managing Director, OPL. Mr. Santosh Kumar Singh, Partner and Managing Director, Intelcap Advisory Services. Mr. Akash Naidu, Head of FinTech and Startups, Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. Mr. Arpit Kabra, he will join us shortly.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So this is the first session after lunch, and it's a very cozy room. I think your seats are very comfortable. Don't fall asleep. Yeah. Just to set the context, it's a very long context. So the topic is AI-driven financial inclusion for MSMEs. Just to give you an idea of MSMEs in India is huge. There are like 6.5 crore MSMEs registered. Estimated is much more than this. And they are the second largest employment provider in India just after agriculture, close to about 26 to 28 employment opportunities given by this sector. And they contribute about 34% of the manufacturing in India, manufacturing output. And surprisingly, they also contribute a lot to the export market, mercantile export market, about 45%, right? And overall, they contribute about 30% of the GDP of India, right? So this is the overall context, so it's huge. More than huge, it's humongous, you can say, and there's a lot of focus on it. And there's a lot of, so government, central government, state governments and agencies like NABARD, they're all doing a lot of work on this. NABARD also has special schemes. So NABARD has a couple of, so it has, NABARD has policy support. So they have something called a potential linked credit plan, where for each district they have created a plan which banks can follow to channelize credit. And there is also recently NABARD also published a rural MSME policy for handholding support for MSMEs. And then on the financing side, so we also do a lot of, NABARD also does a lot of refinancing. 40% of the refinancing done by NABARD goes to MSMEs, and in the past 5 years, NABARD has done about 2.2 lakh crores of refinancing for MSMEs. So that's a lot of money, right? And there are different funds also. There's something called the Food Processing Fund, about 2,000 crores set aside in 2014, that is still active. There's something called Producer Organization Development Fund, that is also active. We also have a subsidiary called NAB Sankarshan. So that provides a credit guarantee for forming of FPOs, for about 10,000 FPOs, right? So, and similar to this, a lot of other banks and organizations are doing work, encouraging and getting MSMEs into the mainstream. Is it working or not? It's working partly. For example, on the digital payment side, it's definitely working. 90% of the MSMEs do accept digital payments. But on the lending side, there is some improvement. For example, in the past 2 years, there has been, on a smaller base, there has been increase in the lending to MSMEs of over 30% using the digital platform. And similarly, within the MSMEs, micro and small, their percentage using the digital lending platform has increased slowly. But are we there yet? No, there's a huge gap. There's the credit gap's about estimated to be about 30 lakh crores, right? And inside that also, there's a lot of variation. Women-led MSMEs, the gap for them, the credit gap for them is huge. It's about 35%, whereas for men-led, it's about 20%. Similarly, the similar gap for urban, rural, and urban. So this is one side, right? And so there's a challenge here. We have to encourage MSMEs. We have to make them financially included in the system. On the other side, we see a lot of things happening on the AI side, right? There's a lot of news every day. There's something new coming up. There's like new medical, medicine discovery, protein, supply chain optimization. So much things are happening. Can we somehow leverage this to help MSMEs, right? So that's a broad context. So we'll start with so they've been introduced. I'll start with Santosh. Santosh is an expert advisor. Um, so Santosh, when it comes to financial inclusion for MSMEs, what are the challenges that are faced by individual MSMEs as well as the entire industry?
Thank you for having us here. Just quickly, I'm part of our Sky group and we focus a lot on MSME. We believe that MSMEs are the growth engine and they should leverage technology and capital to the best possible way to solve the problem. I think you highlighted the scenarios that if you are lacking that much of credit, there are many challenges. But one major challenge that I can say is that the product mismatch. And that's primarily because of the nature of MSME. MSME is not to one sector. MSME is an umbrella word based on size of the revenues and scale, and that creates a challenge. When you are designing products for MSME, you are not sure that you are designing for an agri MSME or rural MSME or urban MSME. There's so much variation. So there's a product, and product and market mismatch that is there. Second, a high transaction cost, which is a classical challenge for many to provide the capital to them. And third, I would say that understanding MSME businesses to assess their creditworthiness is not yet optimal. So a lot of MSME, despite being profitable, they are not able to get the loans or the credit because of that. Profitability is not well established because of the traditional documentation and the framework required. So what we can do that? I'm just highlighting that because MSME, the one part of M is micro, and they are a large part of that, and they don't have these formal credits, documentation to that. These three, are the major challenges that we are seeing why you have the MSMEs.
So you said the product and market mismatch, and what's the second one?
It's a high transaction cost.
Okay.
And a poor understanding of their credit worthiness because the credit models are not tuned to assess their profitability or credit worthiness.
Okay. So Jinan, you know these issues that he's been highlighting, and so are there any products or do you have any products in the market that addresses these technology products that address these concerns?
So broadly, OPL, the company that we stand for, is a company that is owned by institutions. NABARD being one of the institutions, and we are working on rural MSME financing, how that can happen. We also have SIDBI as a shareholder who is the institutional player for MSMEs of the country. In 2018, there was the first platform that was launched for MSMEs. That was called as 59-minute loan portal by the Prime Minister. This was the first time GST, ITR, bank statement bureau based credit decision happened. Right, so still it was not an AI driven model. It was a data driven model and a parameterized BRE driven that was taking a call on this data that was collated for the first time for the MSMEs. Till that time it was only personal loans or home loans that were automated. The first MSME revolution came over there. Now whether PSB 59 is successful or not, if you look into overall metrics today, what he also told, micro is the biggest chunk. And today in MSME, around 45 to 50% of MSME are still not financed, right? As per the data, we are saying 7.5 crore MSMEs are there in India. Now where are they? So before 2 years, around 3 crore MSMEs were registered, but today around 6 crores are registered. I don't know how many of you are aware of it or not, but there are two portals which government has there. One is Udyam, which has a 3 crore MSME registration, and second is a Udyam Assist portal, which is another 3 crore registration. So Udyam Assist is for the nano enterprises. So government is bringing the informal into formal. So the first step is done. Means we have reached 6 crore formalization of MSME. So if someone asks, where are the MSMEs in India? Right, we used to earlier tell there are only 2-3 crore MSMEs that we know, but there are high chances there are 7.5 crores or 7 crore MSMEs. Now we can say 6 crores are here. These are the 6 crore MSMEs of India. So the AI solutions or the innovative solutions have to now come into the additional 3 crore which have come in, right, which are there in the Udyam Assist platform. Try to target that. Which are the models that can be implemented for that? And for that, data is very important, and from where you will get that data on which you can train the models. You can have multiple AI models. You talk about generative AI, agentic AI, right, decision making AI. So many types of AI tools are there today. Which tools will be used for this MSME financing is going to be critical. And which is the data and where is this data is going to be very critical, right? So broadly, around, you can say around 50% MSME is still to be financed. And PSP 59 was the first thing. There is another portal which was launched by PM, which is called as Jan Samarth, which is for Mudra loans. Primarily, every government financed loan is there, which is for Mudra loans, which is also very efficient today. It has also, like daily, some 10,000 plus customers are getting disbursed using that infrastructure. So that also we are monitoring, and there are one or more initiatives which are also coming. But still, even if government brings 3, 4, 5 platforms, the universe is so huge that you will have a lot of innovations to do in it, and all the startups or all the fintechs or all the entities who are working on that innovation will have to play a big role to cover the entire Bharat, which is huge. So whatever is done, but it will never be adequate for Indian market. So you need a lot of innovations in it.
Okay, thanks, Dinal. So Akash, so RBIH, the innovation comes to mind whenever we talk about RBI. So is there any framework that you created that enables, in the current scenario, I'm not talking about AI and all that. So in the current scenario, are there any frameworks that you developed that can be easily deployed and used for MSMEs?
So, thank you. So, Reserve Bank Innovation Hub is a subsidiary of the Reserve Bank of India to accelerate innovation in the financial services sector. So, one of the key mandate is to address the problem of credit gap, in MSMEs, and just taking a few seconds to explain the cycle of how credit inclusion is done. One is MSMEs at the base level need to have a bank account, and then that creates and then they should have an ecosystem to make payments, that is to receive payments as well as make payments. Now after making payments, there should also be data available around these payments, transaction data, which needs to be shared on the basis of consent. That's where the account aggregator came into picture, and and once the data is shared, is where the underwriting or assessing the credit worthiness of the MSME comes into picture. So as you can see, financial inclusion is very, very critical from that standpoint, where if the first step is not taken, if there is no bank account in the first place, nor if there is a payments ecosystem, transaction data available, then underwriting the MSME becomes difficult, and that MSME never gets loan from the formal ecosystem. So that's the cycle. Given this context, there are 3 challenges that I see prohibit the accelerated inclusion of MSMEs, financial inclusion of MSMEs. One is availability of data, second is access to data, and third is assimilation of that data. So availability of data, again, as Jinand and Santosh also were pointing out, micro is a very interesting segment by itself. There is no structured data as such, because transactions, they maintain a kata, or different kinds of bookkeeping is done, which is not digitally traceable. So one is availability of data across different segments of MSME becomes a challenge, and then comes the access to data. So that is the problem that we at RBIH are solving for through the unified lending interface. This was announced by the RBI governor last year, wherein unified lending interface is providing access to data through various data sources using an open API framework. What it does is it unlocks data from various credible sources and makes it available to lenders, which is the banks and financial institutions who ultimately lend to MSMEs. So just 2 or 3 examples of the kind of data sources that are getting unlocked through the ULI are that of the entity locker. So you are aware of the DigiLocker. A similar concept has been taken to an entity level, because as an entity, it is a separate entity by itself. So it needs to have its own documentation by way of PAN, GST registration, etc. So there is a concept of entity locker that is being made accessible through the ULI. Then comes the GST data, GST data, and income tax verification. So if you see these 3, and PAN and other verification anyways is there as part of the ULI. So this entire process is becoming very, very streamlined in order to say, at least for the MSMEs that have structured data, banks will be able to fetch the data through the ULI and be able to offer loans to these MSMEs in a more seamless manner. This is just the beginning, so I'll pause here and maybe continue.
Okay, so thanks for bringing in data. AI is data. So Jinan, what kind of data do we need in the MSMEs, individual MSMEs and the system, so that we can go towards an AI ready world, you know.
Yeah, we are already, working on some AI projects. So broadly, to explain what can be done. So if you have worked with any bank, or if you have worked, or if you are working on any product or project, and if you are providing technology, or if banks are there and they are using the technology, store the raw data. There are various service providers, right, which you are using, right? And you just take the analytics out of those service providers, don't store the raw data. So that's the biggest mistake as an institution, or even as a fintech or any service provider you are there. If you are not storing the raw data, right, you won't be able to build the AI models that you are supposed to build. Most important is whichever data you are using, say you use URL, you use any other data source from which data is coming, the raw data should be stored with the institution. That's most important. Second is which are the kind of raw data that can be used by an MSME for giving AI-based financing loans. So the biggest system that for an MSME today is GST. There are 1 crore GST registered users. If GST data is there and you have substantial data of GST available for a lot of entities, MSMEs, then you have a good chance of building an AI model on top of it. What kind of AI model can be built? So there are players which build an AI model, like we also do some parts of it, which build an AI model which tells you how good this GST of that person is and whether that MSME is good or bad. But how do you know that MSME will default or not? So if you want to give a default ratio, probability of default, which is most important for a bank, if you want to give that, you'll have to marry a bureau with that. So for you, the next part is a GST data, a bureau data is also important. The third is you have a balance sheet and P&L. And from where do you get the balance sheets and P&L? There are a lot of sources. You have MCA to get a balance sheet and P&L, but that's for the top corporates. For the small, micro and small entities, they are 90% of the entities in India are sole proprietorships of partnerships or partnerships. They don't have any registration with MCA. So that data is nowhere. But you have to search where that data is. Okay, so that data lies with CBDT. So there are income tax returns from where you can get that data. So that is the second source of data. The third, so possibly GST, bureau, CBDT, that is ITRs, and fourth is bank account data. So you can use an account aggregator, you can use a OCR reader and bank account data. So that is for all those who are like top GST registered 1.25 crore are GST registered out of 7 crore, or say formal 6 crore. Balance 4.75 crore don't have GST. So bank account data still stays there, ITR still stays there. If you get their transaction data from somewhere, from where they are buying and where they are selling, which is technically what? It's GST. GST is what? Sales and purchase. So if you can get into those systems where the transactions are flowing, that data will be quasi to GST data. So then you can have a triangulation of that data to create a profiling of an MSME and still give a loan even if that person is not GST registered, right? And now coming to the last mile, which is complete nano enterprises. So complete nano enterprises, you go and ask them, do you have bank statements? Very less transactions are there. They don't have GST. Do you file income tax return? Very few of them. In fact, the 3 crore registered through an Udyam Assist portal, majority of them don't have a PAN also. So forget income tax return. So how are you going to build an AI model on top of entities who don't even have a PAN? So there's no balance sheet or a P&L for them. So the best case is always going to be transactional data and alternative data. So you can also use their data of how they are paying their independent bills. So it can be their light bills or their electricity bills that are there, then their telephone bills. So multiple bills, invoices, bills data if you can get, you can build a model out of it. And I would request Akash to bring more systems into ULI which will give data sources of these small entities. So say for OPL, we have Mudra also as our shareholder. Mudra is a stakeholder in OPL. So we are working with Mudra to build the SISHU loans products also. And if you have some innovative solutions where you can have data or you are capturing some alternate data which can help for SISHU loans, we would be more than happy. We along with ULI and Mudra can bring out some innovative Mudra products. And the last point is UPI data. So today also Shetty Saab along with ED madam of NPCA was there. They were talking on how we can bring credit on UPI, right? So there SBI chairman just told one point: credit on UPI is important. Collections post giving credit is also equally important. So that is an equally important model where AI tools have to be built for MSME, right? So collections is equally important, and the industry is still not mature or not having mature models of collections. If any of you who are having fintechs or are looking for innovation and can build innovative models of collection, more than happy to look at our end or ULI, and they are also investing. So definitely very interesting parts in the ecosystem for MSME today.
Okay, thanks Jinan for listing and explaining the data. So Santosh, back to you. If you were to say I have a dream, of an MSME world, can you paint it for us? And where all can AI be used to achieve this dream? Yeah.
So I'll plug back to the
From a financial inclusion point of view. Yeah.
So I'll plug back to the point I said, that what are the challenges, and you heard about the data, and I can give you some more examples of data that could be, but I'll plug to what it can do. Just pure data of how many people walking into small eateries can give you alternative data that, okay, this is a profit-making eatery, a lot of people are coming. So that you can create those data points to establish the profitability. So one, the future that we see, that as an MSME becomes profitable, they will get credit. So proving profitability will become easy because of all the data and we are talking about, and that would unlock credits. That's one point. Second would be that MSMEs are going to have an ecosystem where credit would not be something that MSME are looking for. The credit would be embedded in the platforms that they operate. So if they are doing transactions through a platform, the credit would be embedded. It would be automatically unlocked. You don't have to go and say where I'm filing for credits. That's the second piece. So credit would be. Third, we are going to see a very hyper customization of MSME products with all the kind of data you see. And I was plugging back the point I said that MSME is a very diverse bunch. When we say an MSME loan, it is one umbrella kind of approach that we put to everyone. Once you have this data, then you can customize the product for a particular type of MSME. That customization could be based on the sector, based on the scale, based on the rural-urban divide, based on the kind of risk they have, and you can profile it. So hyper customization of the product would become easy, and this hyper customization would bring down the transaction cost, risk assessment. So transaction cost would also go lower. The other kind of we were looking at that it will become such that the way we are doing the payments, and I come back to the UPI is easy, right? You don't have to worry about it. That could also be done for the credit. That's the future because you do all the background work. And I just want to highlight that we work across the global south. The kind of fundamental infrastructure that we have in India is unheard of. The data structure, the tech structure, the regulatory structure, the data sharing structure is so phenomenal that we have done 90% of the work. 10% is now the top layer. And that's where we are very optimistic that the future of MSME lending would be there is no one seeking for a loan. The loan are already being embedded and offered. It's already happening on Amazon and China is already doing that. Second, you have...
Can you just explain that, you were explaining ChatGPT, how it goes, right? So can you just...
Yeah, so ChatGPT has just launched a new version. If you are on the beta, you can look at that. What it does that, earlier we used to go to ChatGPT and ask, I want to buy a laptop, what kind of laptop was to buy, so you interact with them. Now on ChatGPT, you can say, I want to buy this laptop. You will see that, okay, here are the laptops on your area's vendors. They will give you all the options and you can see, okay, here's the loan available to you. All of this can happen on the ChatGPT window. You don't need to move out of that. So what it has done, credit processing, loan onboarding, credit delivery, data crunching, all has been done on that. That's the future for agentic AI for many of the banks. They will say, you want to buy something and where MSME go for money. They have a particular use. They can go to bank and bank can be the distributor, financier of all of that because they are now tied into larger ecosystem. So what we are seeing is that and the other part is that we have not talked about, the agentic AI has got the barrier removed for interacting with the financial ecosystem. You don't need to understand the financial language. You can talk in your vernacular, you can speak, and your loan application can be processed, which was a big problem earlier. We had to file those documentation that was very, very problematic for a very micro level enterprise. Now that can be done in any language. So loan processing would become very easy because you have lots of data and you are getting data that can be used by AI to verify. The credit would be automatic. You can get product that is customized for your needs, and your transaction cost would go lower because you are managing the risk better and you are lowering the all the operational cost of verification, etc.
Okay, Akash, so can you talk about fintechs working on AI, right, in the lending space that will enable financial inclusion for MSMEs? Yeah, any cases?
Thanks. So at RBIH, the other engagement, rather the one that I'm looking at, is acceleration of fintechs. And one of the key theses there is there are several fintechs already solving for credit access for MSMEs. Also, many of them predominantly AI solutions, accelerating the entire financial inclusion piece. So we've run several acceleration programs, hackathons, and through the entire process, we've seen several innovative solutions for which AI is going to be critical. I earlier mentioned about the 3 A's. One is availability of data, access to data, and third is assimilation of data. I think the third part, assimilation of data, is where AI plays a big role. I think Jinan and Santosh already mentioned about how there is this whole structured and unstructured data. Unstructured in the sense there's a lot of alternative data that the kind of parameters they were mentioning. One was the footfalls in the shop, and the other data which is not formally captured through, say, GST sales or the ITR, but is able to prove that this is a profitable business. Such data is not easily available in a structured manner for institutions to consume. So there have been several solutions that have looked at reading data of different languages, different formats. So a lot of the OCR startups, that's where like AI has come in, is able to intelligently read documents in different, it could be a book, plain pen and paper bookkeeping that they're doing in different language, in local language. It is able to read that and process and create it into a structured format such that banks can analyze it for alternative data. Similarly, even for an account opening process, again, local language banking, vernacular banking has become very, very critical, wherein in a local language you can ask a query and an account can be opened without necessarily, having to go to a branch. So that is again a very, very critical piece when it comes to AI, because I think language is also one of the barriers, and interface is also one of the barriers. So even using a feature phone, you will be able to call a number, open an account, and it's entirely possible. Today we have seen solutions where there are these bots that are helping with customer onboarding as well. So we've seen that customer onboarding piece is one space where a lot of startups are there. Then even on the payment side, payment solutions is very, very interesting. So we've seen one part of it is if an MSME is onboarded, you need to get a QR code. Let's take example of a street vendor or a vegetable seller. They get a QR code, they get a sound box, and the transactions are there. But it's largely linked to their personal account or whatever. Now what is happening is, one, if the account is open, the business account is open, transactions are taking place. Now I've seen several other startups in our programs where the sound box itself, they're innovating. What they're saying is, if it's a kirana shop or a regular shop, it is able to look at customer loyalty. So based on where the payment is coming from, it is giving more insights about the customer, which is actually helping them grow their business. And that box has now become more intelligent. So you're seeing a level of AI solutions that are being added on top of the existing data, existing infrastructure. And finally, also in terms of the collection and recovery, as Jinan was mentioning, how how collection is a critical piece, because risk is one of the risk of unsecured lending is one of the reasons why the sector also will not grow at a pace. If MSMEs are becoming delinquent, the asset book, there are a lot of NPAs that are happening because of unsecured lending. Then financial institutions will not be open to coming forward and lending to MSMEs. So we need to de-risk that entire process. So we've seen several startups, for instance, if they're onboarding an MSME, they do like a location check. They see if, say they claim that this is their office, they actually check against, real-time data of, whether that building exists there or is it a temporary structure created. a lot of that level of verification to de-risk and see fraud. On the location itself now, there's a concept of DigiPin where to the nearest square feet you're able to verify the location, and then collection also at a timely basis where they are getting intelligent alerts that potentially based on the GST data of the last 6 months, it looks like the sales have reduced. As a result, there is a chance that this MSME may not pay you back your next installment. So this level of intelligence and alert is now being triggered through AI, and that's already that's where I feel the entire AI layer is very, very critical, and it's not just a headline called AI-driven financial inclusion. It is through AI itself that financial inclusion for MSMEs will be largely accelerated over the traditional means.
Okay, thanks Akash. So we have limited time. I just want to have a common question for all three of you. Briefly, what do you expect from the ecosystem, from the regulator or from the financial institutions? What do you expect from them to introduce AI so that financial inclusion is enabled? Is there one small point that you can highlight? What is the expectation from the ecosystem?
So the biggest expectation is that for creating AI models and for creating AI products is opening up the data, right? And opening up the data in a manner that new models can be built. So for example, tomorrow data of say GST or CBDT or bank account or something is open, but it is open primarily for the regulated entity. If the fintechs want to innovate on top of it, there are ways in which scientific innovations have happened globally, where people can collaborate without data moving out of a specific environment, and you can actually create models on top of those environments. So we are internally
open up the data.
Opening up the data.
Yeah, Santosh.
I think I'll just plug on what, once you open up the data, I think for me, there are two, kind of dimensions. One, we need to understand that we don't have to regulate the space, but we have to put the guardrails. So it's very critical to put the guardrails in the AI-based innovation. And the second piece is that there are inherent biases the way AI models are built, especially in the case of MSME, because you're building on the basis of the MSME which have got the loan. So you're not building on the basis of those who have not got the loan. So there's an inherent bias that can creep into AI models. So how to de-bias? Because in banking, we have a human bias. When human people try to sanction the loan, now we'll have AI bias. So how to mitigate that AI bias so that we achieve the goal of the two things.
Okay.
Policy as a guardrail and AI data to be de-biased so that we achieve the goal.
Okay, don't regulate, have guardrails and de-bias, right? Akash, what about you?
Yeah, so just mine is an extension to both the thoughts. Recently, RBI came up with the free AI framework, which is a framework for responsible and ethical enablement of AI. It's a 104-page report which talks about how AI could be managed in terms of having explainability, how we can handle these biases, responsible handling of data, especially with the DPDP Act coming into play. Sharing of data will be that much more difficult. So the expectation from both fintechs as well as financial institutions is that one, fintech should look at creating more DPDP or regulatory friendly solutions as a first principle rather than an afterthought, because that will actually drive a lot of exchange of data. And from a financial institution perspective, the request is that they could look at some of these AI solutions actively, both in-house as well as collaborating with fintechs. The only challenge is, financial institutions are high on, say, regulation per se, because they are regulated entities, and fintechs are high on innovation component. So somewhere there has to be a meeting of minds of both fintechs and financial institution for one, data to be shared responsibly, and two, to be consumed and analyzed ethically. So that's the 2 points.
So we have run out of time, so I'll just try to summarize. Basically, all three of you are talking about data all the time, and like you don't want it to be regulated like a teenager was saying, teenager is wish. So basically, what they are saying is like collect as much of data as possible, which is possible only if you digitize a lot of sources that Jinand was saying. Collect all of them and try to run models. And like Santosh was saying, try to offer credit automatically. Whatever is happening for personal loans now on the retail side, he's saying try to offer loans credit to the MSMEs automatically, right? Based on data, so they have to be included in the system, analyze the data, run some models, and give it to them automatically, so that the inclusion increases. And also, you were talking about collection and recovery also can be done using AI models. But broadly, what you are saying is open up, right? Open up the data to the world, to the fintechs with some guardrails, right? So that will enable the environment, and that's it. And you were saying, collaborate. The FIs and fintech should cooperate, right? Collaborate and cooperate. That's what I was saying, right? So that's the summary of what happened here. Hopefully, we didn't confuse you with a lot of information. That's it.
Well, with this, now we'll take a moment to honor our panelist here. I'll request Dr. B.R. Premi, Chief General Manager, Rural MSME Department, NABARD, kindly come forward to present memento. To begin, may I invite Mr. Jinan V. Shah, Managing Director of OPL, to kindly come forward. I request Dr. B.R. Premi to do the honors and present the memento. I request Mr. Santosh Kumar Singh. Now I invite Mr. Akash Naidu. And finally, Mr. Nandakumar Palani. Thank you so much.
Excuse me, sir. So,
With this-
what good picture, sir?
Will conclude, and yes, here we'll have a photo.